So our next presentation is from John Cordray, who is the Social and Emotional Learning Coordinator at the South Harrison County School Corporation. So let's learn more about the interaction of substance use disorder in our public school systems.
Welcome, my name is John Cordray. I am the Social Emotional Learning Coordinator for South Harrison Community School District. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what South Harrison is doing with social and emotional learning. Social emotional learning, or we also call it SEL for short. Here's what we're doing for South Harrison. And I do want to point out, this is our plan. COVID changed a lot, and we may not be doing specifically some of the things that we're doing as much as we would like because of COVID. But this gives you an overview of our plan as a district, some of the things that we've already have done and some things that we're wanting to improve on as we move forward in the future. The Department of Education for Indiana gave us a framework called the MTSS. We have a lot of acronyms in the education world, but MTSS means multi-tiered systems of support, meaning that we have different tiers of support that we offer students. You can see this tree. It looks like a pyramid, and you'll see behavioral, academic, and social emotional. All of those are integrated, and we believe that you have to have all of them in order for students to be able to learn. So for instance, if they're struggling emotionally, they're probably not going to learn. They're probably not going to sit at their desk to pay attention and focus if they're sad. Or if they're behaviorally, if they come in mad and they just disrupt the classroom, they're not going to learn, and the rest of the classroom's not going to learn. And so all these that we're trying to focus, we recognize that students come in with many different types of emotions. And so we want our ultimate goal is to help them learn in a safe environment. But we know when they come off the bus, sometimes these kids have a lot going on at home. So we really want to try to help them. And that's why we have the multi-tiered systems of support to help all different types of students at their different stages of their emotions. One of the things that we as a district that we focus on, and part of what we realize as we have school every day with these kids who have traumatic experiences, we use what's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs for short, where we know that a lot of the kids that come to school have a lot of adverse experiences. And you can see on here the different types of things that we look for on this chart. Abuse, 3 different types of abuse. Neglect, there's 2 different types of neglect. And then there's household dysfunction, what's going on at home. And so if children have at least 3 of these out of 10, there are 10 ACEs. If children have 3 of those, the odds show that they're going to have a more difficult time of learning, of succeeding in school. And so we know that, so we teach our teachers to look out for some of these struggles that the kids have. So here is our initiative as a district, and I'm going to run through this real quick, just so you have an idea of what we're doing. So we want to use common SEL terms, social and emotional learning terms. There are a lot of different terms out there, but as a district, we want to be able to say one thing and we all know what it is. For instance, there's what's called trauma sensitive, and there's also trauma informed. They're 2 different, but they're similar. Trauma sensitive is what we're trying to teach the teachers in the classroom, how you talk to a student. When a student disrupts your class, try not to get angry at their behavior, but try to figure out what's causing that behavior. So it's trauma sensitive, being aware, trying to interact with a child and being able to validate how they're feeling. And then there's trauma informed, and that is more of the therapeutic side. We partner with Centerstone. They provide family support specialists, and they provide therapists to be able to go into our schools and help these kids at a more deeper level. So we have trauma sensitive as a whole. All of our staff, we want to be trauma sensitive. But when we partner with Centerstone, they come in and they do the more specific therapy and therapy services for our kids. And then we have ongoing staff PD once a month. we have social emotional learning to kind of talk about different specific topics for our teachers, building procedures, MTSS teams in every school. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's very comprehensive, but I want to try to keep this video as short as possible. I mentioned restorative practice briefly. It's how we communicate, how we talk to kids. It's about learning what happened to the child, not what the child is doing. So we do look at the behavior, but we try to address the heart. And so I'm just going to go through here these slides. These are some of the things that we're doing in particular schools. So you'll see some pictures here. These are photos that are pre-COVID. So what you see in these pictures are not going to be there now because of COVID. But this is what we plan to do. Students are greeted every morning. We still do that. We just don't do high fives and hugs anymore. We have calm down areas in each classroom. This is an area where it's usually behind of the class, where they have an opportunity, if they're upset, sad, or angry, they can calm down. So we might have things that they can do like color or just simply sit just to calm down. And then we also have rooms, a specific room dedicated in every building. If they simply can't calm down in the classroom, then they can go into the room. Depending on the age, we have supervision for them, but it's just a place for them to calm down. And a lot of times it doesn't take that long to calm down and then go back into the class. And then we have MTSS, that multi-tiered systems of support. We have a small team in every school. So when a kid is struggling with academics or when a child is struggling emotionally, that team of that building come together and we talk about what can we do to help that child. Sometimes it's helping the parents as well to teach them what they need to do with their child. I want to talk about our SROs, or our school resource officers. We have an officer in every building. And let me tell you, they do a lot more than just protect the building physically, but they can be loved on the kids when they're struggling. They talk to them. When they need their feet cleaned, they'll wash their feet. So whatever they need to do, they build that relationship. And that's really ultimately what we're talking about. It's every staff, from the bus driver to the school resource officer to the lunch ladies, everybody, we want to build relationships with the students. Once we do that, they trust us, and then we can help them calm and to help work through what they're struggling with. And then we have community partners. We can't do this on our own, and we partner with others in our community. So we have DCS, which is a Department of Child Services. I'm actually a part of the Child Protection team, and we meet once a month, and we talk through all the mandatory reporting of the kids and to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. So if a child in our district has been reported, then I know that, and then I can make sure that that child is covered and make sure at school we know and we can provide the support. Then you'll see the little text tips too. That's actually called the school helpline, the Safe School Helpline. And so this is mainly for the older kids, but it could be for parents as well. If they're struggling, it's anonymous. They can either call or text and get right to a crisis counselor. And then I get notified to follow up with that student. And then we have chaplains that we have in each of our school for the teachers. We want to provide help and services for the teachers after school. So we have chaplains available to help them that the teachers and staff can talk with. And then we partner with the school, Indiana School Mental Health Initiative. This is a larger community effort for all schools, and we're so excited to be a partner with them with school mental health. And obviously, that's one of the things we really want to focus on in our schools. And then you'll see a Centerstone. We partner with Centerstone, and I mentioned before, they have family support specialists. These are bachelor's level individuals that come in, and they, like a case manager, they work with the kids, they work with the families, and they can go out into the community as well. Things like food and other support services that they may need. They bridge that gap. And then lastly, I talked about the school resource officers. We are so blessed to be able to have them, and we partner with the Harrison County Police and the Cordray Police for that. We can talk forever on this, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot. of what we're doing as a district. I actually skipped over a lot because I didn't have a lot of time, but I hope that helps give you an idea of what we're doing. We are very mindful that students, stressed minds cannot learn. And so we want to love and protect and encourage the students as they come in so they can learn. And that's what ultimately what we want. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Again, my name is John Cordray. I am the Social Emotional Learning Coordinator for South Harrison Community Schools.
Well, thank you, John, so much for that wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, John cannot join us for the live portion of today's programming. We recorded that a few days ago due to some activities at the school, but ultimately that's where he needs to be supporting that. But Dr. Anwar and I are both, we've seen the video and then watching it again, we're just blown away by the different ways that South Harrison Community Schools are interacting and supporting the staff there. I do want to have a couple quick reminders before we have a brief discussion of what we learned there. Don't forget that if you have any questions, please put those in the chat window, but also if you have any private questions around substance use disorder and how it may affect your family or other members of your loved community, please don't hesitate to go to this link, rightcap.link/InROC help. And those are private questions that come directly to Dr. Anwar and I. We've already had a couple come in so far today that we've been able to reach back out with during the presentations and help connect you with resources. So ultimately, that's our goal. Lastly, if you're joining a few minutes late, we do ask that you go and take our pre-survey. This is a grant-funded project, and data is king right now with grants. So we do ask you to please go out and do that. So Dr. Anwar, there's a lot of discussion there with John, and he really started out his presentation about ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences. What is an ACE? Because it's going to come up later in our presentation programming today. Katrina Norris this afternoon is going to talk a lot about it. But what is an ACE?
So adverse childhood experiences, when we're talking about those, are the various different experiences which can range from a child experiencing a divorce among their parents to a child actually experiencing some kind of physical trauma at their home or at any other location, which might be school, which might be at anywhere else. So there is a various different range of those experiences, and then there is a quiz or a score which is established as a result of those answering those questions, and depending upon that score, the child is then rated as to having, for example, if the score is more than 5, then there is an increased risk of developing some sort of side effects as a result of those adverse childhood experiences. These adverse effects can be manifested in the form of various different behavioral health disorders at the time the child is experiencing these or later on in life. And this can also eventually result in some sort of substance use disorder. So it can start, ACEs in itself are considered to be one of the risk factors when we're talking about substance use disorder. In addition to when we're talking about substance use disorder, it is a chronic disease, so there is a genetic component to it. But then when we're talking about various different exposures, ACEs is just one of them. So addressing that at an early age, identifying that at the time that they're happening or at an early age is very much significant if we are trying to address or to reduce the downstream effects of these ACEs in these children during their adolescence or early youth or later on in their lives.
So identifications first, and you mentioned there's some peer-reviewed publications out that kind of discuss how to do this. So if you do work with youth, that is an opportunity as well. But once that score comes, is that score set in stone? Is the damage done, so to say, or are there avenues to reverse that?
So a high ACEs score does not put a stamp on a child that they're going to have some sort of behavioral health disorders or some sort of substance use disorder. Like if you have a higher ACEs score doesn't mean that you're going to be a user of any sort of a drug later on in your life or even at that time. They can be mitigated. The identification is the main thing. If you identify, like John had mentioned, that don't pay too much attention on what the child is manifesting as an outburst or as his attitude, but to identify the reason or the source for that and then try to address that. That's basically. So by no means having an ACEs score, a higher ACEs score, indicate that you are going to have a fate that has drugs and behavioral health disorders associated with that in your later life. It's just identification and then getting the help that's needed.
Okay. And do you need to be trained, right? So a lot of us work with youth either as a formal role as a teacher, but a lot of us are informal mentors with youth. Do we need formal training for this, or is this something that we can give back to our community?
You do need training for this. There are various different avenues from which you can get the training. John mentioned some of those, but at the same time, when you're looking into your own community, you can find a lot of different resources in order to get that training. But definitely, if you're not trained, you won't be able to identify it. Or if you are even seeing something, if you know that, oh my God, this child has had these events, by just the knowledge of that, you won't be able to provide them with the correct help that is needed.
So definitely a lot, and we're learning more every day as a community of different ways that we can interact. But we know that intervening with youth is paramount, because you can really change the whole trajectory of one's life. So.
And one of the unfortunate effects of the substance use disorder is that we will have more children who are living in houses where one or more of the parents is using some sort of a drug. So there will be those aspects that will include not only the genetic aspects coupled with ACEs that will put them at a higher risk. So that is also a downstream effect of substance use disorder, is also ACEs for kids who are living in these families.
A lot there, and I think when Katrina joins us later this afternoon, we'll definitely be able to see kind of how that's manifested within her family, both within her own child, but then also the grandchildren that her child brought to her. So if you have questions for John, he got called away, but we are happy to follow up directly with him, and we're more than happy to do that. So please put those in the chat as we get ready for our next presentation, or you can go to that InROC help links as well.